At the end of the last lesson, we showed that the interest rate swap helps to transform fixed rate liabilities to floating rate liabilities, or vice versa. Now let's see how the arrangement can be done to achieve this purpose effectively. Suppose A wants to take out a floating rate loan linked to 6 months LIBOR, and B wants to take out a fixed rate loan. They face the following rates. The first column are the fixed rates that both A and B can get from the market, and the second column are the floating rates that they can get from the market. If A borrows directly at LIBOR plus SA%, and B borrows at the fixed rate FB%, then the total interest rate for both parties is LIBOR plus SA plus FB%. Suppose that SB minus SA is less than FB minus FA. That is, A is more competitive in the fixed rate market than in the floating rate market. Then, one can consider the alternative strategy. Instead of borrowing directly from the floating rate market, A borrows from the fixed rate market at the rate FA%, and B borrows from the floating rate market at the rate LIBOR plus SB%, and they enter into a swap, perhaps with a bank as the financial intermediary. The new arrangement pays a total interest rate of LIBOR plus SB plus FA%. Thus, there is a total saving of SA plus FB minus the sum of SB and FA%. These transactions will only be executed if the total gain is distributed such that all the parties, including A, B, and the bank, benefit. To better understand the strategy, let's consider the following example. Suppose A is able to borrow from the fixed rate market at 8% and the floating market at 6 months LIBOR plus 1%. Whereas the rates that both markets offer to B are 11% and 6 months LIBOR plus 2% respectively. Now, A desires a floating rate loan and B wants a fixed rate loan. It is clear from the table that A is actually more competitive in the fixed rate market. Can you construct a swap between A and B with a bank acting as an intermediary so that all the parties will benefit? Observe that the rate differential in fixed rate loans is 3% and that in the floating rate loans is 1%. Therefore, a swap with a total saving of 2% is possible. Since A is more competitive in the fixed rate market, whereas B is more competitive in the floating rate market, the two parties shall borrow in the respective market in which they are competitive, and then each enters into a swap with the bank. The following graph shows a possible arrangement. This includes two separate swap agreements. Party A pays to the bank a floating rate at LIBOR plus 1%, and in return receives from the bank a fixed rate at 8.5%. Together with the 8% paid to the fixed rate market, A effectively borrows at LIBOR plus 0.5%. For party B, it pays to the bank a fixed rate at 9% and receives from the bank a floating rate at LIBOR plus 1%. Together with LIBOR plus 2% paid to the floating rate market, the net borrowing rate for B is a fixed rate of 10%. With this arrangement, the distribution of the gain is 0.5% for A, 1% for B, and 0.5% for the bank. For the bank, the swap with A is like paying 7.5% fixed rate and receiving LIBOR flat, and the swap with B is like receiving 8% fixed rate and paying LIBOR flat. Thus, it has a net gain of 0.5%. Suppose the swap lasts for 10 years and the 10-year Treasury yield is 7%. The bank would quote such a swap as 50/100, meaning it is willing to enter into a swap to receive the LIBOR and pay a fixed rate equal to 10-year Treasury rate plus 50 basis points, and to pay the LIBOR and receive a fixed rate equal to the 10-year Treasury rate plus 100 basis points. The difference between fixed rates paid and received is called the bid-ask spread. Note that counterparties are seldom involved directly in swaps. Instead, swaps are usually executed between counterparties and market makers, or just between market makers. The market maker faces the risk of having to locate another counterparty or holding a non-matched position if one leg of the swap defaults. Aside from the plain vanilla interest rate swaps introduced, there are many other interest rate swaps in the market. A callable swap allows the fixed rate payer to terminate the swap at no penalty and prevents losses during declining rates. A puttable swap allows the floating rate payer to terminate the swap early. A basis swap is a swap in which the two legs of the swap are tied to two different floating rates. In a deferred swap or forward swap, parties only exchange interest payments after some future dates. In an extendable swap, one party has the option to extend the life of the swap beyond the specified period. In an amortizing swap or accreting swap, the principal decreases or increases with time over the swap tenor. With the additional features, these swaps are usually more expensive than the plain vanilla interest rate swaps.